Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. This is the third video in my 3-part intuition series. If you haven't watched the first 2 videos, I'll link them right here and on the description. In this video, I'll be going over 5 signs that tell you that it's your intuition and not your imagination or your ego. You know, when I was a kid, I would get intuitive hits all the time, and they would come from a place of wisdom and knowingness, which was usually accompanied by feelings of peace and expansion. And me being a naive kid, I'd share my intuitive messages with my parents, my very religious parents. If you think about how religion is traditionally like, it's basically giving authority to a deity or a sovereignty outside of yourself, and trusting that deity completely more than you trust yourself. And so I'm sure my parents themselves weren't really in touch with their own intuition for them to know better. So, they dismiss my intuitive messages by saying, it's your overactive imagination talking. And, and as a kid, you believe your parents because you think they're omniscient. So over time, it became very confusing for me to tell apart my intuition from my imagination. Once my spiritual awakening intensified, and once I began to trust the voice that was coming from within over the voice that was made up of outside influences, that's when I was able to differentiate between my intuition from my ego or the imagination. And, over the years, I've come to know the signs that help me differentiate them. And today I wanted to share that with you. Sign number 1, feeling of everything clicking together. With intuition that comes from deep down your core, it's usually accompanied by a feeling of everything clicking together and coming into place and ultimately giving you a sense of sturdiness, groundedness, and expansion. There is a sense of knowingness, like as if you've known it to be true all along, but you had forgotten it. Your intuition should feel like it's aligning with every part of yourself, your mind, heart, and even the body. The heart feels grounded and firm, and the mind feels quiet and surrendered, and the body feels relaxed and at peace, much like the feeling you get when you've finally arrived. For example, in my last video, I talked about how I came to quit my job at a big tech company, which turned out to be my last job in corporate America. Day in and day out, I just got this sense that my real work was waiting for me, that I was occupying someone else's job right now, and that I needed to hurry up and get to my real work. All these intuitive messages came with a sense of solidity and knowingness, as if I've always known it to be true for a very long time, perhaps even before I was born. It felt like it was just a matter of me finally surrendering to it. Sign number 2. If it's your ego, then your mind becomes hyperactive. Now, if it's your imagination or your ego speaking, you usually feel it mostly in your head, and it usually feels flighty, overexcited, or hyperactive. It feels like your mind is rationalizing with you, and you're bombarded with reasons and fear-inducing thoughts, visions, and logic. For me, when I get intuitive messages, it's never, ever fear-inducing, meaning I never become afraid or worried as a result of the intuitive message. Even if the intuitive message is meant to warn me of something, it's usually done in a neutral way, as if it's stating a fact, and it's always accompanied by a peaceful feeling. So for example, at the beginning of 2020, right before, the illness spread, during a meditation, a message came through. And the message was that there was a lot of shifts and changes coming, but you and your loved ones will be protected. This was delivered in a neutral way and solid, as if it was just stating a fact. I think this is done because we tend to become unconscious when we're in fear. And so intuitive messages from higher consciousness would come in a more neutral or a more elevated way so that it wouldn't derail us. Sign number 3. Intuitive information comes through all senses. You receive intuitive messages through not just one part of yourself, but through all your senses. For example, when I usually get intuitive messages, I see it through visuals and images in my mind. I hear specific words and phrases, and I get certain feelings and emotions all simultaneously. In other words, I feel it multidimensionally, but they all point to one thing, which is the message. If it's coming from your ego, again, it usually comes through your analytical mind. The mind deduces and analyzes and comes up with a story, a logical reason, and usually linear kind of boxed in explanation. And the emotion is usually fear-based. Intuitive messages usually do not give you a reason or a story. It just feels like how truth feels like, which requires no explanation. Sign number 4. It feels expansive versus contracting. One sure sign that tells me whether it's intuition or imagination is the feeling of expansion. I would say that the feeling I get when I'm receiving an intuitive message is like the feeling I get when I'm having an epiphany. I feel expansive around my chest area, my heart area, and my mind is clear and quiet except for the intuitive message. Now, if it's just my imagination, it's contracting and restrictive, especially around the chest area. And the mind feels linear, much like how it feels when we have tunnel vision. I think we feel expansive when we're experiencing intuitive messages because our intuitive senses are picking up information across a wide span of time and space, from the whole of you, not just the present you. It's picking up data from the past, the future, and the present, and across different dimensions. That's why you get this feeling of expansiveness, because it's literally bringing in information from an expanded space. And so that's why an intuitive message usually has that prediction factor, where it seems to know what the best course is for the future. Sign number 5. Intuition is consistent, persistent, and does not go away. Your intuitive nudges don't go away and are going to persist until you receive the message. Also, every time you think about it, the message is going to be consistent, even years later. For me, at least, my intuition keeps getting more and more intense if I don't listen. It keeps repeating itself over and over until I get it. And if I still don't, then usually the signs start to manifest in my physical reality. And if I still don't listen, well then my outside circumstances start to crumble and I'm forced out. For example, I was living in the LA area when I started to feel that it was not where I was supposed to be. The LA atmosphere felt too aggressive and energetically dry, superficial, and well, it just wasn't a match with my energy. While living in LA, I felt an intuitive urge to move to the SF area, but I ignored it because both my husband's family and my family were living in the LA area, and we felt obligated to stay close. But I felt the intuitive signs coming on strong, even showing up in my dreams at night. Almost every night for years, I kept dreaming of me living in the SF area, and I kept dreaming of the same neighborhood over and over. I talk about my premonition dreams in detail in the first video of my intuitive series, and so I'll link it here if you're curious. Anyway, I still didn't listen to my intuition, so my outside circumstances started to crumble down and everything started falling apart. Jobs didn't work out, the businesses I started failed and ended up in me accumulating a lot of debt. And well, it seemed like all opportunities were drying up. So I finally relented and put in a job application in the SF area. And that company ended up offering me a relocation deal and I took it. After I moved, it was like a breath of fresh air, and fortunately, I started flourishing. Anyway, if you're confused about whether it's coming from your intuition or your ego, I would say give it a rest. Don't think about it for a while. And then after some time passes, come back to it to see if you get the same intuitive message. If it's stronger than ever, then it's most likely not coming from your imagination or your ego, which tends to be short lived and more impulsive in nature. In conclusion, I hope these signs help. Let me know in the comments below how you distinguish your intuitive hits from your imagination. And, just curious, is your intuition always right, or is it like a hit or a miss? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, like always, thanks for spending time with me. I love having people like you here whom I can talk to about esoteric things like this, so thank you. Regards, Ray.